Hello and welcome. This is Alex Mondosian. If we've never met, then I want to welcome you to the virtual book tour of Scale or Fail. Now, what does scale mean? Well, we'll find out. What does failure mean? You probably already know. Now, a virtual book tour is different than a physical book tour where you go bookstore to bookstore, if you're an author, where you're in one place right now, virtually. The author of this book, Allison Maslin, who I'll introduce in just a moment, is in a completely different location than where I'm at. I'm in San Francisco Bay Area. She is in the San Diego area. Where are you from? So the first thing I want you to do as you're watching this, it doesn't matter if you're watching live or it's the recording and you're watching it afterward, type in your name and the city you're watching from, and my production manager, Leo, will not only welcome you, but will introduce you to other people who are like-minded and of the mindset of scaling. Now, it doesn't matter if you have a startup. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran. It doesn't matter if you're attempting to scale and have failed. This book will teach you how to set your business up so that you can exit, you can keep it, or you can build it in a way so it grows and you're not part of the 90% of small businesses that fail within 5 years. It's because of scaling and not marketing. It's because of scaling and not sales. It's because of scaling and not about your team. Although soaring in your business, team building with your business, and making your business grow or exploding your growth is part of the promise of this book. And you'll have a chance to get the Kindle version at a highly discounted price. Now, you're looking at the book on Amazon.com right now, and you'll get the Kindle version, if you're watching at the right time, for less than $1. In fact, 1 cent less than $1, it'll be 99 cents. So we'll encourage you to get it and then get a review. There'll be a bonus webinar where my guest, Allison Maslin, will be going even deeper on how to scale your business, even if you have a startup. So all I want you to do right now, and we have a minute to go before we begin this interview, is type in your name and the city you are in right now. I don't care if you're in India or if you're in Asia, in Australia. We have people from all over the world, 6 continents. I've been trying to go after Antarctica for many, many years, but penguins can't type. So, that hasn't worked, but hopefully one day we'll get a few penguins who can type and come on these virtual book tours. Maybe we can get them to write a book. This is a seminal book for you and your future. Are you living in the past? Are you suffering in the present? Or are you looking toward a bigger and brighter future? Scaling your business means making it so that it can work without you. And this is something that I've suffered from. This is something I've struggled with many, many years. And that's part of the reason why I'm interviewing Allison, because I want to learn from her. We're good friends and we belong to several masterminds together, but you don't really learn until, you get to be taught by someone who's already done it. And she'll explain why she's earned the right to write this book and to teach you. So let me stop the screen share on Amazon and invite you to ask one question. And here it is. Do you have a scaling plan for your business? I don't care if you've started a business just recently, or you built one over the years, or if you've scaled it in the past. Do you have a scaling plan for your business? Yes or no? Just type it in the chat. Again, if you're watching the replay, type it in the chat. Hopefully you've unmuted me, because the default on Facebook is mute. So hopefully I've been unmuted and you can hear me. But I want some engagement from you, because I want to know how many people, of all the people watching, and we'll have over 100,000 within a week of broadcast. I want to know, yes or no, do you have a scaling plan for your business? If you don't, then you are trading your future and giving that up to someone else, to your team, to your vendors, to your customers, but not you. You got to control and take some level of authority of how to build it so that your business can work without you. So I want to introduce you to a dear friend, and she's right now in San Diego, but she travels like I do all over the world. And she also has some great workshops where she teaches entrepreneurs just like you how to scale or fail. The reason I love the title is it's binary. You either scale or fail, and you may not have thought of it that way. Allison, welcome. And this is our first interview. Can you believe it?
I know, Alex. It's about time. I'm so excited.
Well, let's start and dive into the specific incident. Where were you? When did it happen? Who else was there? What happened? What was the original spark for this book, Scale or Fail?
Well, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, Alex, and my father scaled a women's clothing chain to be the largest in the United States, starting with my grandfather in 1955 all the way to the early 80s. So the message I got early on was, if you want something, go create it yourself. And so I started my first business at 19 when I was in college. And I was doing personalized poems for birthdays and anniversaries. And, realized pretty quickly that wasn't very scalable, but it was fun. And people just started asking me, do you do brochures? Do you do radio? Do you do television commercials? And I just kept saying, yes, let's go for it, even though I had absolutely no idea how to do any of those things. But, when your back's against the wall, you just figure it out. And so by the time I was 25, I built this full service advertising and PR firm. And I was making a lot of money. I was taking on big clients like Ben & Jerry's and Supercuts and Allstate. And it was like a crazy time. It's flying all over the country. And you would have looked at me then and you would have thought, wow, that young lady, she has got it together. But the truth was, I was falling apart. I was miserable. I was working 24/7. My daughter was about a year and a half old back then. So I'm trying to balance everything like so many business owners do, and I bet there's a lot of you that are listening have felt that way before, where I felt like, what's wrong with me? I should feel grateful. I felt trapped in my own success. And I felt stuck. And so I was afraid. I was afraid to make a change. And what happened was that the universe stepped in and I ended up having a horrible car accident that from the stress, from having no sleep. And I was really, it was a miracle that I survived. So when I walked away from that, I said, okay, this isn't working, and I need to learn how to scale a business. Back then, I was great at flying by the seat of my pants, but I didn't understand how to build a team. I didn't understand how to delegate. I didn't understand the logistics of business. And so that was my massive wake-up call. And I took a year off and really studied, what was I doing wrong? What was I doing right? Because there were some things that were going well. And I put a whole scale plan together back then by studying companies like Ben & Jerry's, like Charlotte Russe, that were my clients, to really learn the underpinnings of business. And I went on from there, and I've built 9 more companies, scaled those companies, and exited 4 of those companies, and have had a blast with. And so now, in the last 10 years, I have been paying it forward and sharing my wisdom with other business owners, because so many are stuck in this place. And that's why I ended up writing this book, because it is so needed. You don't have to live that way. You can scale and impact so many more people and have a life too.
Well, what is enlightening and encouraging to me, because I've had a scaling problem. I tried not to make my business a guru-based business. I believe my ego is not attached to it with marketingonline.com, but I have a guru business. And a guru business, whether it's Tony Robbins or Alex Mondosian, it's not scalable once I'm gone. It doesn't have any legacy. So the thing I love about the book is the title. You either scale or you fail. And most people starting don't think about scaling. They think about surviving. Yes. But if you plan to scale, then failure becomes an option that is not likely. And so scaling or failing, this is the virtual book tour. There's 3 promises in the book, and it's in the subtitle. It's about team. It's about building your dream team. It's about exploding your growth. Everyone loves growth. If you're going to scale something, you might as well grow it. And then allowing your business to soar. Now, I'm told the eagle is a bird that can fly at the highest altitude. So soaring is about altitude, getting your business up there. I want to get your definition of it. But before we begin, I want to know who the ideal reader is, because we're going to talk about the definition of scaling, like what is it? And, why do businesses fail if they don't scale? I know if you're watching right now, and I'm talking to you because there's not a crowd in a room. I mean, we're one-to-one, right? It's one-to-many, but it's one-to-one. You may have a few people watching from your computer, but it's really between us and you. I want to know, how can a startup scale with no team? Because you can have a scale plan without a team. And what does it mean to have a soaring business, which I alluded to earlier? And as by special arrangement and as a courtesy with her publisher, which is Wiley, you get access to the Kindle version for less than $1 if you're watching this on time. Now, if you're watching the replay and it's a year later or a few weeks after we broadcast this, then the price will be different. But get it anyway. Get it and highlight it, because what I do is I read and I highlight the Kindle version, and then I read the physical version so that I can get access to the book, not just once, but twice. So let me go to you, Allison. Who's the ideal reader for the book?
Alex, there's really 2 ideal readers. There is the business owner that has an established company and you've just been working so hard and you got some traction in the beginning and then you hit that wall and you just can't get over it. And you just think, well, if I work harder, but you just feel stuck, or you've been at the same level for a long time, or maybe you're having some incremental growth, but not big leaps. And then it's also for the startup, because wouldn't you have liked to know this stuff, Alex, when you started your business? And so that you can plan to scale from the beginning and you know what's ahead so that you don't keep hitting that wall.
Well, and then the promise of the book is the subtitle, and you can read what the subtitle is if you go to Amazon and look it up. But you have 17 chapters in the table of contents. If someone were to start, I mean, the first chapter is how this book is different, which, what a great first chapter. But before the forward, okay, what would be the chapter you would encourage people to read first? Because I hate starting on page 1 because most people don't get to page 20. What would you encourage a potential reader, a candidate reader watching right now on Kindle or physical version? What would you encourage them to read first? Which chapter?
I would go ahead and I would start with chapter 2. And, I mean, there's obviously a lot of setup in the introduction and so forth so that you get prepared. But when you're scaling your business, and I know we're going to dive into this more, the first thing that you need is a strategic vision. You need to know where you're going. And, sounds, yeah, Allison, I get it. It's so obvious. Of course you need to know where you're going. But most business owners, if you stop them in the street and you say, okay, where do you want to be in your business in 3 years? How do you want to spend your time exactly? What kind of employees do you want to have around you, or your team around you, or the customers that you're working with? Like, if you were to walk into your business in 3 to 5 years, exactly what would it look like? And most people will look at you with a blank stare. They don't know. And if you don't know where you're going, you don't have to know how to get there, but if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there.
Well, and that brings me to, what is the definition of scaling? You talk about it in the book. What is scaling exactly? But like, why is scaling relevant to everyone watching right now? Because usually it's something that people think about after they've been in the business for a while and they've made some money. But I think it's something they should think about before they start any business. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, backing up a little, we get into business generally because we have a passion. We're excited about something. We want to put it out in the world. And all of a sudden we find that we are the business. We're doing everything. And instead of, running a company, it's running you. And that's really what happened to me. And I think a lot of business owners relate to that. And so when you're in your business and you're working one-to-one, meaning you have that one offering, or maybe even 2 or 3 offerings, but it's still, you're like, oh, I need to get that customer or that next client or that next sale. And that's fine. But then when that's done, you're back at square one, that one customer, that one sale. Scaling means that you go from one-to-one to one-to-many with the same amount of effort. So your impact multiplies, you duplicate your offering and you replicate your offering and you multiply the number of people you're meeting, that you're connecting with, that you're offering your product or service to with the exact same amount of effort. So your wealth multiplies and the number of people that you impact positively multiplies.
In the early years when Bill Gates was growing Microsoft, he said, I put 1,000 units of effort in and I got 1 output. So 1,000 inputs to 1 output. And then when he finally scaled the business and he wasn't sleeping under his desk and he was a billionaire, he would put in 1 input and get 1 million or 10 million output. So it's the principle, of momentum. So I think there's a learning and doing gap. So going back to scaling, give me a case study of someone who maybe you've mentored or you've taught or has gone through your process and your training, that was smart, wanted to build a business, but didn't scale and was struggling and then ended up scaling and became a success. Can you think of any that come to mind?
Yes. In fact, I'd like to share 2 because you can scale on the team side and you can scale on the revenue side. And I go over all of those things in the book. In fact, I share 17 scale strategies on the revenue side in the book. So I'll start with the revenue. One of my clients, their company is called Dog is Good. Like life is good, but dog is good. And it's a lifestyle business for dogs. And they have all kinds of products for people that love dogs. It's actually the products are for the people. And they were developing their products. They were selling to retail stores, in lots of retail stores. But, it's wholesale. So their markup is minimum. And they're working really hard in their business. But then what they realized was there's all these people out there that love their products, consumers that love their products, that love dogs. I'm a dog lover myself. I know you are. And they wanted to sell. All these consumers were like, well, could I sell your products? Could I have parties and sell your products? And so we helped them create an exhibitor program where now their customers are becoming business owners and, look at that. Their customers are becoming business owners and they're setting pop-up shops all over the country. And so within a year's time, they've already got over 50 exhibitors who are now becoming business owners. So they're spreading the wealth. And she is so excited because you've got all these people that are passionate. She's helping them. They're getting more products out. and it's not her, contacting one store at a time.
Well, and that's the thing is I got my clickbait over here. This is Minnie.
Aw, Minnie.
There are dog people and there are cat people. Okay. Cat people want independence. Dog people want dependence. And that's how I look at it. It's binary. So I love when I come home because I'm the only person who matters. Yes, I feed her. Yes, I keep her alive. But, there's a different mindset between dog and cat people. So even if you have a great business, scaling it so that it can work without you in growing it, making it soar, which we'll talk about what you mean by that, and building your team, which most people overlook. I mean, Richard Branson says, Sir Richard Branson, he says that your team should take priority over your customers, which most people feel, is counterintuitive. So let's talk about the 5 components of scaling, because in defining it, you talk about 5 components in the book. Like, what are each of the 5 and why are they critical to growth?
Absolutely. So scale, an acronym for scale is the S is strategic vision, which I was just talking about. C is cash flow. And you've got to prepare for cash flow, because even once you grow into the multiple 7, even 8 figures, you can hit cash flow crunches. So you need to learn to prepare for that and navigate through it.
And cash flow and revenue are not the same thing. Cash flow and profit are not the same thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, cash flow really is the life force of your business, right? And you need, so there's things that you can do to prepare for that. And I talk about that in the book. And alliance of the team. And I'd love to share a little team scaling story with you. L is leadership. We have to learn to move from boss to leader. Instead of saying, this is what you've got to do, you inspire your team into action and for them to be excited about your vision. And then the E is execution. That's where the rubber meets the road. I mean, it's all fantasy when it's in your head. So you've got to put it into action.
Number one reason why CEOs get fired from Fortune 500 companies is a lack of execution. So execution is not strategy. It's the actual doing, and when things are due, who is doing it. And so I think it's lost with many startup entrepreneurs of actually, what does it take to have others execute on your behalf? I mean, they can do it, but getting others, inspiring others. When you talk about leadership, which is the L, I believe in engage and enroll versus the command and control, philosophy. And that's the spirit of, what you talk about in the book. Is that true?
Definitely. And that's actually a perfect explanation. So one of my clients, her name is Bonnie Lucas, and she runs a company where they have off-duty police officers across the country doing security guards for events and where they need, grocery stores, things like that. And she had been in business for 20 years and had really hit a wall. They'd stayed at the same level of growth, like 2 million for years and years and years. And she had her few employees, no systems in the business. She was really in there working, a lot, not having a lot of free time, getting towards years of, I want to set up for retirement, is not seeing how that's going to happen. And so we jumped in, used the proponents that we've got in the book on scaling the team. She was micromanaging and controlling, like what you were saying, Alex. She was a little bit of a control freak, like a lot of us can be, afraid that the employees are going to make mistakes. And we helped her to let go and lift the team up so they can run with it. And she went from 2 million to 7 million in her business in 2 years. And now she just spends a lot more time on her boat in San Diego. Her business is in Phoenix with her husband. And actually they're in Italy right now. So. the business is running.
Well, the great question is, how can the business grow without me? If you just ask that from the very beginning, then you have a scalable business. How can the business grow without me? At this moment, my business cannot grow without me. It will move along for about a year, but there's no legacy, there's no scale, there's no ability to continue without me because I'm attached to the business. And so next year, my goal is for me to ask that question every single morning. How can this business grow without me? And that, for me, is the ideal scaling question. Let's talk about failure, because I like the or. I think the key word in the title is or. You either scale or you fail. It's not an and, it's an or. So why do businesses fail if they don't scale? It's one of your chapters, the power of failure. What would you say to someone who's failed before or is destined for failure and in denial right now?
Yes. I mean, I think Neil Armstrong was talking about before he went to the moon, and he said, let's practice failing down here so we get it right up there. So we've all have had failures, mistakes happen, and that's really part of growth. But you get into business because you want to have freedom, you want to make a difference, you want to create wealth. And then, you find that your business is running you. This is not creating a flourishing business. This is not why you got into business. And so there are many business owners out there that are struggling because you're trying to play it safe. Playing it safe is not a business strategy. You've got to be willing to take the leaps, to be willing to fail so that you can scale. I love the story Sarah Blakely tells with who is the founder of Spanx. And she had no business experience. She was selling fax machines. But when she was younger, her father used to say to them at dinner, okay, what did you do to fail today? And so I don't look at failure as a bad thing. I think that that's where the lessons are. And that means that you've taken a big enough leap to fall on your butt, right? But then you learn from that. And in the book, I actually give you the step-by-step to avoid the falling on the butt. And, but, once you get the scale steps right, you pick the one scale strategy that is the right fit for your business, you're going to see dramatic growth, like we talk about in the subtitle of the book. That's where your growth explodes, and you'll be so surprised with so much less effort. Doesn't mean you don't work hard. I work hard, but I'm not grinding it out and, not sleeping at night anymore. And I actually get to spend time with my husband, my dogs, we travel, and I'm helping a lot more people.
Well, scaling gives you more impact to get exposure with a lot more people. I speak in many continents, and it's not scalable because I physically have to be there, but I'm attempting to scale the business after I come back home so that after I mentor and coach them as follow-up, then they have a membership site where they can continue their growth. Startups. Many startups don't think about scaling. In fact, scaling is an afterthought. We're thinking, if you start a business, you're thinking about, how do I get new customers, clients, or patients, members, students, whatever you call them? How do I make money? How do I replace the income if I was working for a company with my own business? But scaling doesn't come up. It comes up after it's too late, after systems have been put in place that prevent scaling. So for those startups who are watching right now, which I would say are the majority, I'll take a guess, but are the majority, I'm guessing. And if you're watching right now, if you're a startup, write it down. Say, I'm a startup. Now, imagine if you started thinking about scaling as a startup versus just generating revenue. If you ask the question, not how do I make money or how do I get a new customer, client, patient, student, member, right? I'll call them a customer. Instead of asking that question, how can the business run without me? So if you have no team and you're just starting from scratch, it's you, then how can that person scale, Allison? That's a tough question. I want to see what you do with it.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations for starting your business. We've all been at the startup phase. I've been there many times, and it's an exciting time. It's really creative, and you've got this whole path ahead of you. And you don't have to scale a big team. It really is about taking what you do, your genius, your brilliance, your expertise, and replicating that to many people. So it's not always, one-to-one, like me having this conversation with Alex right now. And so the ways that you can do that, you can create a membership program. So let's say you create a Facebook group, you start building a following there, and you create a membership program from there. And also a certification program, and I can talk to that a little bit. But the idea is that you're creating monthly recurring revenue. And so that maybe you start with a few members, but over time and sticking with it, you can have thousands of members that could pay anything from $29 to, $200 a month. And I know for myself, I'm paying a lot of recurring revenue for different memberships that I belong to. And this can add up to a lot of money. And, when you're offering things that are recorded, that are not you-centric, you don't have to be the one delivering, that continues to bring in money while you're on vacation. And when you go to sell your business, if you think about scaling from the beginning, and you have recurring revenue, the value of your business goes up dramatically, because a buyer is going to come in and go, wow, I have revenue I can count on. I'm not concerned that if Allison leaves, then there's no customers, because we have this ongoing engine.
Well, we have a mutual friend, Roland Fraser, who puts on the largest digital marketing conference in the industry called Traffic and Conversion. He's partners with Ryan Dice and a bunch of other people within the digital marketing world. And Digital Marketer is the company, and he talks about MRR. Yeah. And MRR is monthly recurring revenue. And his claim is, if you were to sell the business, they're going to buy cash flow versus a problem, because you have ongoing income, whether you're in it or not. So monthly recurring revenue is increasing the value of your company by up to 7 times, sometimes more, depending on the niche that you're in. And it's not easy to get, but what's important is, if you aim for that, which is my goal for next year, is monthly recurring revenue. In fact, I'm learning how to buy businesses, and buyers have so much more experience than sellers. Sellers are selling one business. Buyers are buying, hundreds of business opportunities, and they say no, 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 and finally yes. So I'm trying to intern with Roland, but the way to do that is to find monthly recurring revenue, scalable businesses where the person doesn't have to be the face of the business as I am. So one of the biggest challenges that people have within the personal development industry is, by definition, the guru is the face of the business. And the people they look up to is the face of the business. And that's all I had in growing up. I didn't want to be the face eventually. I wanted that to be taken over by somebody else. But you can't, if the business, no matter what the name of the business is or who your ideal client is, if they're used to having you as the value creator. So it's difficult to make that transition. But if you're a startup, it's a lot easier, because you don't have to change anything. You don't have to take this aircraft carrier and turn it. You got this little sailboat or rowboat, and you can turn it, a lot faster. So I want to talk about a soaring business. You talk about soaring. It's one of the promises in your book. In the subtitle, it says, letting your business soar. What does soaring mean to you? I'm going to put you on the spot here.
So soaring means that when you are in a place that you've got all your systems in place to scale your business, and you're like on autopilot, and you just start seeing the flight of your business really take off. And I use the word flight because I am a trapeze artist, so I love to fly. I've been flying on the trapeze for 20 years. And if you see on the cover here of the book, the trapeze bars.
I was going to ask you that because I didn't know the context, but I see it now.
Yeah. So because I find there's such a metaphor with trapeze and business. And, you've got to be willing to climb the ladder. You've got to commit, that you're going for it, like in business. And when you're setting yourself up to soar on the trapeze or in business, you've got to jump in with both feet. You cannot just test the waters and go, I'm going to see how this thing is going to go. It's not going to work. You have to decide you're going to be successful. You got to be all in. You've got to be all in with your passion, your energy, and your confidence, and focused on that vision and see in your mind that it is going to happen.
Well, let's talk about that, because you have trapeze bars in your backyard, and you found a home to do that with you and your husband. But when you leave the bar that you're holding on to, the moment your fingers leave the bar, just like an Acapulco cliff diver is leaving the rock cliff, and his toes leaves, or her toes leaves the rock. Now you're in the hands of risk. And in that moment, you really don't have control. Something could happen that could be disastrous, but you're doing it because in the case of a trapeze, you trust the person who's going to catch you, who is a leader from behind, basically. Your timing is right, and you're putting your trust in that other team member, as well as releasing you so you catch the bar on the way back. So you're risking it twice. So I think the trapeze is a great metaphor of how to scale a business. So in letting it go and being all in, the moment you leave, your fingers leave the bar, what's that feeling like for those who haven't jumped from a trapeze? I just recently did some skydiving, so that was the free fall. That was kind of cool. But what's the feeling in those few seconds when you leave the bar?
Well, there's a lot of praying that's going on in my brain, and even after this many years. But there's also, from the moment you jump off the board, you have to decide you're going to catch it. You've got to commit and see it and feel it. So we call it expecting the catch. You don't want to be caught like, it's just a surprise, like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to happen. And then you're all sort of loosey-goosey. You've got to really feel it and see it in your brain. And it is such a feeling of exhilaration. And I think it's such a great, correlation to business, because you can either say, I'm terrified, or you could say, this is exciting, and so that's really how I see business too. In that moment when you're in midair and flying, it's a very freeing feeling. And when you catch, it's just like, yes, that feels so great, so solid. And then when they throw you back to the bar, that's really, man, you are taking some height. And it is just, this amazing feeling. Your stomach kind of goes up and into your eyes, and then you see that bar, you see the goal, it's in sight, and you reach for it. You can't panic then and go, I can't do this. Like, you really have to grab it. And in that moment where you've got it, it's that sense of accomplishment that feels so great. I think everybody needs to have that sense of accomplishment more than anything.
Also it's about letting go. So it's about letting go and being caught. So you're vetting your catcher like a team member, right? In every skill set or position that they have. I mean, I like to hire a bookkeeper before a salesperson because I want to be the first salesperson of the company. I want to hurt that bookkeeper. I want to make that person work super, super hard. So that's my philosophy. Hire the bookkeeper first, because if you're starting the company, you're the first salesperson and persuader, to get more customers. But then after the catcher lets you go and you're grabbing back on the bar, then that's completing the loop so you get back to where you started. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that, as an analogy. Like, I'll give you an example of where a lot of people watching right now are. This is an acorn. And I have an oak tree in back of my office. I'm in my office in San Rafael, California, which is just north of San Francisco. And that oak tree is, I don't know how many thousands of pounds of oak. But it started over 80 years ago, so I'm told, with an acorn. Now, it didn't start with this one. This one dropped. But the reason this dropped is because the oak tree is, grown up. So the only way you can create, more value and more visibility and more access is by scaling. That oak tree is scaled. It's dropping more acorns to hopefully, grow another one. Now, as far as I know, none have grown, but I mean, it started like this. So if you're an acorn right now and you're just starting, it takes time, but unless you think about scaling up front versus after years. I mentioned Roland Fraser, who I'm a big fan of. Perry Belcher, Ryan Dice, those are his partners. That their business, Ryan and Perry were partners. It's a great story at Digital Marketer. And they were not doing well only because they weren't scaling. They were great marketers. They confused revenue with profit. This is Ryan telling me this. And Roland came along and brought the principles of scaling into the company and actually changed the niche and the industry that they're in. They went from, training to certifications, because you can't really steal certifications. They had someone in China stealing their training and reselling it, but you can't really steal a certification because that has to come from, an entity. So what Roland was the scaling partner, and as the three-legged stool, Perry, Ryan, and Roland, and there are many more partners, and you know them all. The scaling is what made traffic and conversion that event every single year that most people go to within digital marketing, what it is today, like over 6,000 people who attend. And that they recently sold a part of it and maintained control of it because they could scale. Let's speak about documentation, which I'd rather die a death of a 1,000 cuts than to document the stuff I do in my business. But let's talk about the power of that and then wrap this up. Why is documentation so important, like a McDonald's? That's what people study McDonald's when they go to MBA school and studying, franchises. So why is documentation so important? How do we do it?
Well, like McDonald's, they know exactly the weight of the beef, how many pickles, exactly how much ketchup, so that in all the McDonald's, all over the world, it's exactly the same. You have the same ingredients. So, it saves you from continually recreating the wheel in your business. I mean, think about when you're running your business, no matter what size, how many times do you do the same thing over and over and over? Think of the amount of hours. What if you had a system in place so that you didn't have to do that anymore? And, that would literally save you hours every single week. And we often think, oh, I'll just do it. Just take me a few minutes. Well, that few minutes done over and over and over all year long can really add up. So by having systems in place, so for instance, you have a system for onboarding a client. So it's always the same and all your customers have that same wonderful experience. Or if you lead an event and you have all the steps in place, then somebody else can jump in and do it. It doesn't have to be you. And I give a whole system in the book on systems made easy. And because I'm like you, Alex, I don't like doing that kind of stuff. But I don't want to have to say it again next year. I just want to have trust that it's done, and I can go to sleep at night knowing that things are not going to fall through the cracks.
And the easiest way to document is, whether it's video or it's screenshots and it's in written format, is take about 20 to 30% more time in doing something. And as you're doing it, document it, hand it to someone and see if they can duplicate. If they can't, then you haven't documented it. And that's the first, step to scaling. And that's what I did. And that's what I'm having my team do in order to scale. So it's no accident that I'm the interviewer. I'm here more as a student than as a host of this virtual book tour. Now, this is the Scale or Fail virtual book tour. It's about your team, your growth, and it's about soaring. And of course, you've been with Allison Maslin. We've talked about the definition of what scaling a business really means. We've talked about why doing business will be a failing business if you don't scale, which I haven't heard any other author talk about. And how can a startup scale if you don't have a team? We talked about that. And go back to the replay if you forgot some of the points Allison made. And what does it mean to have a soaring business? So we come to the end. I'm going to give you where to go to get this Kindle version at a deeply discounted price. Now, cost and price are different. Cost is the cost of inaction or indecision that will cost you on an ongoing basis if you don't take action. Price is you pay it once and that's it. So if you're watching it at the right time, you have a highly discounted price for the Kindle version. No trees were killed for the Kindle version of Scale or Fail. And you can go to beyondbooksales.com. That's my scalable business, by the way. You notice it's not marketing online. This is going to be working without me in teaching authors how to repurpose their books, just like Allison. So beyondbooksales.com/scale, get the Kindle version, and then write a review. Now, about 15 to 20% of the people write a review if it's asked for. If it's not asked for, then less than 5% write a review. But to write a review that is a certified review, meaning you bought the book from Amazon. Non-certified is you didn't buy it from Amazon, right? But if you write the review and you make it meaningful, because you actually read a chapter or two, then you have access to beyondbooksales.com/scale bonus. And that's going to be a webinar. It won't be Facebook Live. It'll be private. It'll be a webinar in drilling deeper and having Allison be almost a personal coach and answer some of the questions that you have that prevent you from scaling, which is my final question. What prevents people? What are the roadblocks or obstacles that prevent people from actually scaling in your experience, Allison?
Well, some of the roadblocks are, hate to say it, but our ego, where we feel like it has to be us. And I've been there, it's a lot of fear too, that if I step back from the picture and build a team or build an engine that is not needing me, then, all my customers may leave or I won't be relevant anymore. And, I talk to so many business owners that feel that way, and it's not true. Your customers just want support. They want their questions answered. They want to be taken care of. But I promise you, it doesn't have to be you. So, I have a team, I run a company called Pinnacle Global Network, and we mentor business owners all over the world. And I have a team of 8 mentors who run successful companies who are brilliant. They don't need me. They teach what I teach them. And that way we're able to help so many more people if it was just me.
Well, the principle of priority is knowing the difference between what's important and urgent and doing what's important first. And scaling is important and urgent, but you may not sense that it's urgent. your first step is to get a book. Get it in the Kindle version. If you want the hardcover, you can get it that way as well. You may be in a country that doesn't have Amazon shipped to it, but go to beyondbooksales.com/scale. Get the book. That is a forwarding link to the book, and you'll find it on Amazon. And if you want access to Allison again, then go to beyondbooksales.com/scale bonus. We'd like you to write a review. The moment we have 100 5-star reviews, all of a sudden Jeff Bezos' algorithm kicks in and Allison's book becomes a bestseller on a sustainable basis. It's not fun just to have a bestseller for a month. It's nice to have it for over a year, or year after year after year. Books like How to Win Friends and Influence People or Think and Grow Rich with absolutely no promotion from the original writers. Those are scaled books because it's through word of mouth. If you were to look over the shoulder of a candidate reader, a potential reader, they don't know you yet. I think they like you, but they don't know you and they don't trust you. What would you say as you're looking over their shoulder and they're starting to read the book? Final comment.
Final comment is a saying that is like one of my favorite, and a belief really, Alex, that I carry with me from the beginning through now. And that is to remember this: make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. If you make a decision from where you're at, like if you read this book and say, oh, this can't be me, because my life is this, this, and this, are excuses, you're going to stay there. You're not going to scale. But if you get clear on where you want to go and you make decisions as if you're there already, wow. Just watch the universe unfold for you and see all the riches and opportunities waiting for you right at your feet.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I'd paraphrase Albert Einstein. He said, solving a problem can't be done at the same level of thinking that created the problem. You have to go into the future in order to solve it with a bigger and brighter, mindset. So being present is good. Living in the past is not so good, but thinking toward the future is about scaling. And that's why this book is so relevant. I hope we've spoken to you. I hope your heart has received it. I hope we've made it possible for you to give this a shot. And if you know a business or an entrepreneur who's struggling right now, it's not a marketing problem. It's not a team building problem. It is a scaling problem. That's the root cause of all misery and suffering in business. It wasn't structured to be scaled. It can't run without you, which is the purpose of a business. Robert Kiyosaki has talked about this, and a lot of business leaders have talked about this over the years. The E-Myth with Michael Gerber talks about this as well. And what's interesting is many authors who talk about scaling don't do it for their own business. Well, Allison does, and that's why I'm interviewing her. So I hope you take advantage of the Kindle version, you start reading, and then give her feedback, because she has ways of getting a hold of you if you reach out to her. Any final words, Allison, as we are side to side here on the Facebook Live?
Yeah, I mean, Alex, my mission is really for all of you that are watching this right now. And the reason I write this book, the reason I do this work, is that I want to see you soar. I mean, that's my legacy. This is my legacy book. Nothing will make me happier, because when you soar, not only do you create an amazing life, you help your family, your employees, and you help so many more people out there, and they're waiting for you. They need you. And so just thank you so, so much from the bottom of my heart in taking that step for yourself. And I really appreciate you. And I appreciate you, Alex. You're incredible. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. And everyone else, if you're watching, it's a mouse click or a mouse pad click away. If you go to Amazon.com, I'm going to give it to you one last time. In case you missed it, you go to beyondbooksales.com/scale. And if you want more of Allison after writing a review, beyondbooksales.com/scale bonus. It'll be in the chat in this Facebook Live, although the bonus will be private. Let me tell you one thing about Allison, and this is from my heart to yours. I don't know how well we know each other because you attended. You may have come from Allison or one of her partners. She's the real deal. I remember reaching out to her via text, wanting her to be part of a panel where I was enrolling people into a $25,000 sale into a mastermind that we both belong to called Genius Network. She didn't know she was going to be asked to be there. She told me that it takes a woman longer to get ready than a man. That's what she told me. Okay, I know that there's a lot of politically incorrect things to say, but she told me that. And I reached out to her right before I was going to the gym that morning before 6 a.m. and she was there. And she looked as great as she looks right now. And so she does WIT, whatever it takes. And that's the way I want you to approach scaling. And if you do, and you share your story with us, we will share it with the rest of the world, because it's never a scarcity problem with business. It's not about the scarcity of the customer. It's not about scarcity of opportunity. It's not about scarcity of the right team members. It is a distribution problem, and distribution is about scaling. If your company can continue to distribute whatever it is it's selling, service or product, without you, which mine can't right now. So I'm guilty as charged. That's a confession. But if it can, then you have a scalable business that can either be passed on as a legacy company to your children or family members, or sold. And that's where you really make a lot more money than being attached to it. And why not treat it like it's a franchise, even if it's not? Make sure it can work without you, even if you're just starting out, because that level of thinking will take you to a much higher level, faster, better, and easier. So that's my message from my heart to yours. Allison does have workshops. She does have high-end mentoring, but it starts with a simple investment and learning from the book. I hope the book, Scale or Fail, you treat it like a how-to course and not just another book that you buy and you leave on the shelf and not read. Now, I've read all of the books that I'm showing you right now. I want you to be like that goldfish. You see that? You see that picture? That goldfish is leaving the smaller goldfish water bowl into a bigger one, which means it's going to grow. One day your life will flash before your eyes. Make sure it's worth watching. What if you're a trapeze artist without ever flying from one bar to the next and then flying back again, right? So that's what that goldfish does. And I hope that your memory is more than a goldfish, which is about 5 seconds, and you say yes to buying the book. So on behalf of Allison Maslin, I'm Alex Mondosian. I hope our paths cross again soon, and they will. Our paths will cross again if you get the book and learn from it. Allison, thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex.